So here it is. This is my first deck guide for Mythgard, and I'm very excited to share it with you. It went through several variations. I was trying to make something that's a little bit more control-oriented, something that can play the longer game, sustain the early game pressure from the opponent, and maybe weather that aggro pressure for a while before establishing a board, taking control, and then hammering down for a victory. I've put in a lot of lane enchantments in this, and I want to share this deck with you. So we're going to go to what the deck looks like and talk about that right after this. No name for the deck yet, but we'll get there. Okay, so the deck is fairly straightforward-ish. Can really anything be straightforward in Mythgard? I mean, there's so many layers to this game and plans of attack that it's hard to just say that it's a very straightforward strategy, because you have to be reacting to what your opponent's doing as well. I guess the spirit of this deck is that you want to be able to weather the storm of more aggressive decks in order to get to more, a safer game board state where it's really awkward for your opponent to attack, and the trades and interactions that they'll be making are a lot less favorable for them, that they're always going to favor you, and everything they do is going to be uncomfortable, and the longer the game goes, the more uncomfortable it will be. Now, this isn't a game, this isn't a deck type rather that is looking to go to fatigue or exhaustion or whatever. This is more a deck type that actually just weathers all that initial pressure from your opponent, stabilizes, and then pushes back afterwards. Life total in this deck is not all that important in the first 4 or 5 turns. You might get slammed down, but as you progress, you want to be playing reactionary to begin before you start getting a little bit more proactive. The deck utilizes a lot of lane enchantments to keep an uncomfortable board state for your opponent, as well as dealing with their initial threats, as well as putting down some key minions on the board to trade and give him some trouble. So we're going to go through the deck list, and then I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the basic strategy, and then we'll go from there. So here is the deck list, and I should warn you that my collection is not all that complete. I only began collecting cards about a week to 10 days ago, and I've been trying to essentially dust as many cards as possible to make a collection in 2 or 3 colors, and as such, I've kind of sacrificed a lot of my purple collection and a lot of my green collection in order to focus on yellow, red, and blue. And orange, I'm just kind of leaving up in the air. Okay, so here we go. This is how the deck looks. So I've got 1 times the Fey Plagiarist. I have 1 Field of Poppies. I have 1 Brainstorm. I have 1 Ensnaring Serpent. I have 2 God's Blood Transfusion. I have a single Maelstrom. I have a Skilled Hacktivist. I have 2 Runes of Denial. I have a single Tailroot Worm. I have a Thunderclap. I also, let's just put this down here, I have a Timberland Troll. I have a Valkyrie Enforcer, and 2 times Giant's Stairway. That makes up the blue portion of the deck. And then I have 4 times Fire Dart Frog, 3 times Laser Grid. I have 3 times Vibrant Quetzal. I have 3 Yahuis. I have a Blood Idol. I have an Incubation Chamber. I have Wonder Drug. I have Goliath's Web. I have 2 times Mythanthropia and 2 times Harvester. 2 times Air Soditor. I apologize to Air Soditor or Tier or whatever. My apologies. And the Headless One. So on a budget, I mean, you can definitely make this deck, because there are other cards I wish I could make more of and upgrade, but unfortunately right now as it stands, our collection is kind of in a state where we're going to have to go to budget / mid-range in terms of our economy on this deck. So how does this deck work? Well, you're going to be playing very reactionary at first. If you're going first, as you can see, there aren't any real one drops that you're comfortable playing. You don't want to really play a Field of Poppies just anywhere because your opponent will play around it. Fey Plagiarist is not a card you want to slam down first on turn one anyways, because again, your opponent is going to probably block it and it's useless. The Fey Plagiarist is a card you want to strategically play later in the game to punch through and duplicate artifacts and your opponent's lane enchantments for your own benefit. I should also add that we're using Rainbow's End and the Mend power. I found that these have been worked well for now. The Divination power is probably going to be good. I just haven't unlocked it yet, so I'm trying to give something for those who might not have everything unlocked. Okay, so like I said, this is a very reactionary thing. Typically what I do is when I'll start building my yellow mana pool, because that's where a lot of my more minion-based plays are going to be centered around. Cards like Yahui and cards like the Fire Dart Frog are good for early game trades against an aggressive build. Things like red creatures are going to be bouncing into these and likely having some trouble having favorable trades or favorable lane placements for their minions, because the Fire Dart Frog adds 1 damage across 3 lanes when it dies, as well as things like Laser Grid, which makes attacking certain lanes difficult. You could typically drop a couple Laser Grids on one side, cover 6 lanes, and really funnel all your opponent's movement and attacks through the center lane, so that they're going to have to really start playing cards into the middle lane, where then you can start dropping bigger cards and bigger threats. Cards like, for instance, Maelstrom. If you've got Laser Grid on row 2, Laser Grid on row 6, and right dead center in row 4, you have Maelstrom, you're really making your opponent kind of sweat it out about where they want to place creatures to start attacking. The ensnaring, not the ensnaring serpent, the Goliath's Web is an excellent center piece for this, because it doesn't matter what's in the middle, as long as what's in the middle deals combat damage, whatever it trades with will die. So you can just drop weenie after weenie after weenie into that row, and whatever crashes into it is going to be problematic. If you have the Blood Idol in there, it'll trade favorably, gain you some life, etc. The oh crap button is Misanthropia. You just give everything on the board Blight, wait it out, and then you're fine. If you can continue to play very patiently and weather that early game storm, you should have a good spot. Placing your enchantments strategically to really pigeonhole your opponent's creatures down to a couple viable lanes makes it a lot easier for you to start hitting it with more damaging cards. Like, that's where you'll eventually slam down your harvesters, or or just going in with wedging them into the ensnaring web, or the Goliath's Web, so that you can go ahead and start trading for value on your smaller creatures. This is a grindy type of deck, and in the ranks and in the areas where I'm playing it as a beginner, I find that there's so much red aggro and aggro based decks that are just slamming face as fast as possible without much repercussion. By putting Laser Grids and Maelstrom and Thunderclap and whatever, you're going to be punishing your opponent for flooding the board, but at the same time you're going to be punishing your opponent for going down certain lanes. You don't necessarily have to be the aggressor. You can always just weather the storm early and make your way after that. There are certainly other cards that you kind of want to play in here, but I mean, cards like God's Blood Transfusion to give another card regen, slamming that on Yahui is an excellent combination, because this becomes a viable threat as a 4/5. It only takes 2 damage per hit, so it can take 2 hits from your opponent, and then you can go ahead, he'll heal himself for 2. You can heal him with your hero power as well. And if you do have a where is she? If you do have Air Sodator on the board, it'll heal on top of that. Now, this is not the ideal list. I'm still working on this, but I wanted to get a deck list out to share with you guys that you guys can play and have something different that isn't just mono red, or red based rush face and go decks. This is a little bit more tricky to play, so if you like a more complex build, if you like something that involves a little bit more planning and that has a very rewarding outcome, this deck has been winning a lot more than it's losing, but I think that that's Also because I'm just facing against a lot of decks that play very small low to the ground minions that get punished by these row effects. Nonetheless, it's a deck that I want to be working on. It's a deck that I'm very happy to sort of progress and improve and evolve with my collection as that grows. So I do invite you to play it, and there's definitely going to be some cards that you want to you can sort of swap in and out. 4 Fire Dart Frogs might not be the right answer. I think that might be too much, but it is a way to combat aggro. So this is definitely how I've built it. You can build it your own way. But yeah, there it is. We'll go through the list one more time, and let's do it. So 1 Time Fey Plagiarist, 1 Field of Poppies, 1 Brainstorm, 1 Ensnaring Serpent, 2 God's Blood Transfusions, 1 Maelstrom, 1 Skilled Hacktivist, 2 Runes of Denial. Now here's a card. I just want to say Rune of Denial is great. The suppressing factor isn't important, but I want to also tell you that if you suppress a minion, you cannot be it cannot get things like Blight. So suppressing a minion makes it immune to essentially any additional effect that would add a keyword to it. So if you Rune of Denial and then Blight, it's not going to work out. So you want to make sure that you plan that out. I also have 1 Tailroot Worm. It's another card that I want to be crafting more of. It would definitely work well in this deck. I only had the 1 and I'm out of dust. I've got 1 Thunderclap, 1 Timberland Troll. If you were to add another Tailroot Worm, by the way, I would take out the Timberland Troll. That would be the trade-off. I have the Valkyrie Enforcer, Giant's Stairway ×2, 4 Fire Dart Frogs, 3 Laser Grids. I would probably ditch a Laser Grid for another Maelstrom if you're going to make that change. I have 3 Vibrant Quetzals, 3 Yahuis, 1 Blood Idol, 1 Incubation Chamber, 1 Wonder Drug, 1 Goliath's Web, 2 Misanthropia, 2 Harvester, 2 Air Soditors, and 1 Headless One. Another cards that you might want to throw in here could very well be the Serpent Trap, or I forgot what it's called. It's the one that generates a serpent every turn. Throwing that next to a Goliath's Web and just constantly moving the snake over onto the web is a pretty solid move. So, all right, that's the deck. Hope you enjoy it, and there it is. No name yet, but we'll figure something out by the time we have to make the thumbnail. So the deck is definitely not in its final stages. It's a work in progress. We actually went from red-yellow to a red-yellow-blue, and finally to yellow-blue. We went from a hyper control to kind of a mid-rangey control grindier build, and just eliminated the red elements to it and stuck to this. I really do enjoy playing this deck. I don't think that it's tier 1 by any means, and it's definitely needs some fixing in terms of honing down the card choices. Still, I do invite you, if you do have some great card selections or card choices, some swap outs that you would suggest. I love hearing that. Drop it in the comments. I would be happy to hear your suggestions. And if you want to see the deck in action or check me out, you can do so on Twitch at twitch.tv/watchflake. I play a lot of Mythgard, so you can go check that out. I do stream pretty much weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and sometimes in the evening. So keep track of that, or on Twitter at watchflake. Please hit the subscribe button here on the channel, drop a comment, like the video, do all that jazz. It goes so far for a schmuck like me who's trying to make it in this biz. So thank you very much. Be kind to one another. I'll see you soon.